everyone, it's Adam again. Welcome to episode 4 of my little video series. This one's going to cover OWBN Packets. So what is a packet from One World by Night? Packets are expansions on the world and the rules for each individual aspect of the game. Generally speaking, every clan has at least one packet. Every sect has one packet. These include history updates, additional options and features for those clans and sects, new powers, new abilities, how you get those, what they do, who controls them. They're an expansion on the books. They largely became more popular when White Wolf stopped producing material for the World of Darkness and we needed to start creating our own. So those packets are each passed by council. A coordinator writes them. Council debates them, votes on them. If any changes are made, those are put in at the time, and then they're passed for use in One World by Night. There are two types of packets. One is called binding, meaning it's gone through council and has been voted on. The other is non-binding. It's an optional packet. It might just detail some information. You don't need to use it. You can if you want to, but you're not required to. Brings us to the next question. What exactly is binding in a One World by Night packet? Very specifically, in the admin laws, only the following things are binding in any packet. And these are the packets that are voted on and passed by One World by Night Council. So anything related to do with status, that is standing in a clan or a sect, or positions within that sect or clan is binding. Whatever the packet says is what they are. Genre changes, anything that is different from what the White Wolf books say. Different changes in the history, different directions we have chosen, things like that. Prestige and ranking systems are also binding in these packets. These, again, generally relate to clans or ranks within factions, within a sect, things like that. And then lastly, blood magic regulations and approvals. This has to do with the paths and rituals that are allowed and who approves them and how they're approved. And that's it. That is all that is binding in a packet. If you see conversion mechanics from tabletop to LARP, those are not binding. They are suggestions. A lot of games use them as their default, so check with your storyteller. Those are what they use, but they're not required to. They're recommendations. They're not binding. Only what we've talked about here is actually what is binding. Anything that's in a packet that they want to be binding and be required to be followed beside what I talked about has to be in the character bylaws we talked about earlier. If it's not there and it's not in a packet, it is not binding and it is not a requirement. And that is very important to remember. It comes up a lot. The next question becomes, what are approvals? So ultimately, there's 3 stages of approval. There's your storyteller can approve it. There's your sub-coordinator can approve it. And then there's a coordinator can approve it. Storyteller approval is pretty much what it sounds like. It's straightforward. Your storyteller says yes or no. Some rarer powers are higher approval than that. Sub-coordinator are individuals who are appointed by a coordinator over them to oversee a specific thing. And some powers you will see labeled as sub-coordinator approval, meaning the sub-coordinator or the coordinator can approve it. Then lastly, you have coordinator approval. Coordinator approval is the one individual that's in charge of that thing can say yes or no. Your storyteller can't overrule these two. It's up to them. Anything above that is going to require a council vote of some type. Some things do. Some extremely rare things require all of the games in the org to get together and vote and decide if this thing is okay or not. That's the highest level approval. Above coordinator is council has to vote on it. So that's what approvals are. When people say, what approval do you have for this? How do you get a packet? Packets are available on the One World by Night website. I don't actually know if you need a login anymore to see them. Probably still do, due to some legal issues in the past. Your council member or storyteller for your game should be able to get you those, as well as many players have them. They're not terribly hard to get. If you need them, you can absolutely reach out to me. I will happily provide you with any packet you need. There are links on my own Discord for Kings of New York to get those packets if you need them. I'll get them to you as soon as and easy as possible. Packets themselves are updated roughly once a year. Again, they're drafted and created by the coordinators, and the coordinator will bring them to One Roll by Night Council. Council will debate, discuss, some changes happen sometimes, and then they're voted on, and either they pass or they fail. If they fail, it doesn't go into effect. If it passes, it does. Usually once a year, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little more. It varies, but the average I would say is about once a year is packets are updated. And there's a packet, like I said, for every clan, every sect. And they go into a variety of details and options. There's quite a few of them. You only really need to focus on the ones for the thing that you're playing. If you have any questions, of course, ask your storyteller. Next question is, do you have to use packets? Besides what we talked about as being what is binding per the bylaws, the character bylaws, you don't have to use a packet. There's suggestions. Your game can say, I'm not using this packet. I don't want it. I don't want to use it. As long as they're following the binding aspects of that packet, they're okay. But a storyteller can always use less. If a storyteller wanted to say, I don't want Tremere in that game, they can still say that. So always check with your storytelling staff as to what packets they use, what they allow in those packets, and things along those lines. Just like you would with any book. For example, if you want to take something from a tabletop book for your character, you got to ask your storyteller. Your storyteller is your ultimate authority on what you can and can't do. So that pretty much covers packets. There's not a whole lot to cover in there. Like I said, if you need them, just ask your storyteller, your council member, or another player, or me if you need to, and I'll be happy to get those for you. All right, next episode I'm going to see you for is episode 5, and that's going to be on blood magic. Catch you later.